Hello? Is this on? All right. We will now begin the City of Boynton Beach special meeting today, Tuesday, March 13, 2018. Would everyone please rise for an invocation by Commissioner McCrae, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow to the Creator and Maker of all mankind. We come this afternoon first recognizing that Thou art God, and besides Thee there is no other. As we partake in the business of this city, we ask that You will lead us and guide us and let us do what is best for the citizens. In Your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Grant.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katz.
Here.
Commissioner Price.
Here.
Commissioner Romulus.
Present.
Commissioner Casella. Absent. There is a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, seeing none, motion passed unanimously. The way that we will have the meeting is that we'll have a presentation by staff, followed by public audience. You may begin.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Staff is pleased to be here to present moving to Phase 2 on our Town Square project. We're going to go through a short presentation. I'm going to present the actual project and the cost for the project, and then Tim's going to cover the financial package, and then I'm going to close in with covering the contracts required for the project. As you're all aware, we had a fairly large development team, and I want to use this slide just to thank everybody. We've probably had over 150 professionals working on this over the last year and a half to get to this point. Sorry, it's not close. Okay. Year and a half, about 150 professionals. We want to thank them for their hard work. Staff, every department in the city has worked on this. We've had a great team effort to get to this point, and I want to especially thank the public because they came out and they gave their input, and that helped tremendously creating this project is the input we got from the public, from all the public meetings we had. And finally, the board for giving us clear policy and clear direction to get to this point. So use this slide to thank everybody that participated up to this point. We all know the town square is 16.5 acres that's in this area right here. It consists of 4 city blocks. It also includes 5.5 acres at the High Ridge site. We've covered this plan many times. This is the proposed master plan for the site. It includes hotels, residential development, commercial development, restaurants, refurbishing of the old high school into a cultural center, a brand new city hall library, and associated parking structures, along with a central park area with an amphitheater for outdoor events and other activities, an active park, and a kids park, rebuilding what is there and bringing it up to date. Just real quick, won't spend too much time in, just some numbers of the project, just a couple of numbers to see. The historic high school will, some restaurant space, 500-seat auditorium. City Hall will have an incubator space and some meeting spaces available for the public to use. 120-room hotel, about 650 to 700 residential units, and over 1,900 parking spaces in the downtown area. So, I'm going to cover now each component of the project and the costs. The first one is the site area, 16.5 acres. The site work and utilities. What this entails is everything you need to do to make sure buildings are functional. This is all of the demolition of what's in the way. It's rebuilding all of the roads, the sidewalks, putting in landscaping, doing all the hardscape, the park benches, lighting, pedestrian access, and everything else that goes with building on 16.5 acres and making it usable for everybody who comes into the downtown. Also included that is utilities, which is water, sewer, and stormwater as a separate line item, and again, demolition. Altogether, that total cost is about $15 million, and it's the base infrastructure for the project.
Okay, thank you.
The high school is the next part of the project. As you were, we already started construction on the high school, working on drawing it in. It's about 28,000 square feet. It's a historic building. Masonry is stucco with wood roofing and steel trusses in the auditorium. Purposes for recreational uses and civic functions. Our current construction cost on that is $11,068,000. next one is City Hall Library. Again, 110,000 square foot building, tilt wall. This is a rendering of it, an artist's depiction of what City Hall is going to look like. And it's going to be, its proposed uses, the first floor is half library and half city functions for city services. Second floor is library, third floor is city operations, and fourth floor is city executive and administrative services. And that budget is a little under $27 million. Fire Station 1, as you're aware, Fire Station 1 is an old station, needs to be replaced. We're looking at, that's going to be placed on the northeast corner of Northeast 1st and Northeast 1st Street and Northeast 1st Avenue. It's 11,000 square foot, 3-bay fire station building with full quarters for full staffing for the downtown area, and it's sized to provide the support services needed for a growing downtown. And that budget's $4.8 million. Police headquarters, this is at the High Ridge site. It's a 58,000 square foot tilt wall steel structure designed to meet the needs of advanced 21st century police department. And its current construction cost for that is $19,200,000, plus or minus. We also, on this project, we decided about 9 months ago to supply central energy for the project for cooling, and that's a district called District Energy. And District Energy is a new utility that the city will be starting. The funding is coming out of rates, but it's a very energy-efficient way to provide the cool water needed to cool all of these buildings, public and private buildings in this development, plus surrounding private development that is occurring. So this will be set up as a utility to serve the chilled water to all of those structures as ratepayers. And it is a way to cut cost for that and also provide a very green, environmentally friendly system providing those services instead of everybody doing their own AC on their roofs or beside their buildings. Parking garages, when we started the project, the city looked at building the parking garages themselves and then leasing space out. Once we got into the project, we realized it's really not something the city wants to do, so the private developer is going to build the parking garages. The city is going to buy the spaces the city needs. The city needs about 465 spaces in the garages, and to purchase those spaces, it's about $10,300,000. There's two garages, one north, one south. The south garage will have more spaces because that serves the city hall and library functions, and the north building serves the high school and other public functions. There'll also be other public surface parking throughout the project for the public to use. So, real quick, a current project schedule. These are estimated completion dates from the contractors. These can shift a little bit as we get into the project, but these are what the current estimated dates are from the contractors. And basically starting mobilization, that means moving big giant equipment onto the site to start working in July 1st of this year, and being finished with all of the project, including the private development, at the end of 2020. So that's a very short time frame. During that time frame, things will be dirty and messy and under construction, but the end is in sight very, very quickly. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Tim.
Before you turn it over to finances, I have questions. First of all, I need to know, what is the square footage of our present library? This one.
58,000 somewhere.
It's about 58,000 square feet.
Yeah, we're going 58,000 down to... Going 58,000 down to... We're going up 109,255.
That's a combined. The library only portion of that's about 47,000 square feet, plus some other space the library will be using, shared space the library will be using.
So we're losing 11,000 square footage.
About 10,000 square feet total from where we have now.
All right, let me go to this parking garage, and then Tim, you probably can answer that question when I get there. When you get there, you just said 435 spaces is going to cost the city how much again?
About $10,200,000.
How much is it going to cost the developer to complete it? The same amount?
Per space, it'll be the same amount. The developer will have the majority of the spaces in those. So we'll have about 465 spaces out of about 1,900. The total cost of the garages is over $30 million.
That's the part I need to hear. All right, thank you.
I have a couple questions.
That's what we're here for.
The fire station, how many bays is that going to have?
3 bays.
Is that going to be enough to fulfill our needs into the 21st century as the
The fire
population
chief
keeps growing?
says it's absolutely what he needs to go for the next 60 to 70, 80, even 100 years if he lives that long.
Okay. And what is that going to be built to, Cat 5?
We're designing everything to 275 mile an hour winds.
Is that a Cat
That's
4 or
not
5?
a Cat, that's a Cat 4, typical level. We don't design to Cat 5. Now, that doesn't mean it won't stand up to a Cat 5. It just means we don't design to that because the cost is...
What's the new station over on High Ridge, Station 5? What is that built? What specs?
It was designed to Cat 5 under the old standards.
Why wouldn't we want to do this in the downtown area?
We can look at the cost and bring that back, but when we looked at it, we feel like Cat 4, on this side of 95, anything over about a Category 3 hurricane, we're going to have mandatory evacuations, most likely all the way to 95. You're in the floodplain, you're in the flood zones for those large storms. Now, Cat 1 and Cat 2, no problem, but when you get those storm surges that high, these areas we may want to evacuate anyway. So the question is, do you spend the money to design something that you're not going to use during that storm event? And the other thing, too, is, you probably don't want to hear this, but from an engineering standpoint, when we design to the wind loads we design to, there's a huge safety factor in those designs. So by designing to that, most professionals believe that unless it's a major catastrophic event, and if it is, the entire city is going to be knocked out. It doesn't matter what you design to. Unless it's a catastrophic event like that, the buildings will be fine in a hurricane. You may lose a couple windows here and there, or maybe a piece of a roof, but nothing that we can't use the building afterwards.
Be my thinking during a catastrophic storm you just described, that would be the epicenter of people trying to congregate.
Well, remember, Fire Station 5 is our emergency operations center. That's where we would operate out of. We would not operate out of the
I'm
other
talking about
stations.
people and civilians.
Right. Yeah, we can certainly bring some numbers back to you if you're interested in looking at that, to go to a Category 5, but it's quite expensive when you get to that
I
level.
see people over there shaking their heads no. I don't think that's coming back, but okay, let's
No,
move on to the...
we can calculate the numbers. It's a lot of money, though.
Let's go to the utilities use over there. You said chilled water, and you and I have had this discussion. I'm sure you've had it with the other board members also, is that we talked about fuel cells. You fail to mention fuel cells every time you bring up this utility plant, and I wish you'd bring that into discussion because I think it's the 21st century, the way to go, and I think a lot of new development are going into this.
So I'm glad you brought it up.
Well,
And yes,
thank you.
you're absolutely right. I don't bring up specifics, but I'm glad you did. Fuel cells are it's an older technology that's now come into the 21st century as very reliable technology. It's something the city's looking for, not just for this plant, but for other plants. It provides a very green source of energy that you use all the time. You use natural gas in a clean way. The output is basically water and air. Water and oxygen is your output. So it's a very clean way of producing power. So we're absolutely analyzing fuel cells to determine to the extent we can bring them into all of these projects. Everything we can do to bring that green technology in, we want to do. And so the only reason I can't tell you for sure that we're doing is we're analyzing it right now. Right now, we've based it on a chilled water plant which just makes cold water. If we bring fuel cells into it, it'll also make hot water, because that's the outcome of a fuel cell is you get hot water. So we can move hot water to these buildings too, which is even more energy efficient. So when we get into the final design, we will be using those numbers to determine what the best source of energy for those plants are. And I agree with you. I think fuel cells are an excellent source of energy for these plants.
Thank you.
I have one other question. Since we place in the police department west of 95, will that be a Cat 5, since the fire department is a Cat 5 out there?
We're designing to the same level as... I think it's the Cat 4. We're designing to that 275 mile an hour wind loads, which by the factors, by the category hurricane factors, and I'm not the expert at that, but it's 275 miles an hour is a Cat 4 hurricane.
Colin, I'm going to have to correct you.
Yeah, you may have to correct me, because he probably knows it more than I do.
150 is Category 5.
Right, so they're being designed...
So you're saying 275.
I mean 175. If I said 275, let me correct me. I did say 275. 175 mile an hour wind loads, which is higher than what a Cat 5 is, but not designed. Remember, there's design, what you design for in a Cat 5, and then what a Cat 5 highest winds are. So we're designing to a Cat 4, we can certainly bring numbers back of what does it take to go, because Cat 5 is not just designing to 150 mile an hour, it's designing to 150 mile an hour plus all the gusts and everything else that comes with it. So it's a little bit more than that. And again, I wish I was the expert at it. I'm not the expert at that part, but I can certainly bring that information to you, what that cost differential is.
Because the way that a hurricane is measured is by the sustained winds,
Right.
not the gusts.
Not the gusts.
So when we're doing this Category 4, it's 140, I think,
Right.
miles per hour. That is a sustained wind that the buildings are, and so it will be able to have gusts higher than that.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think, Category 4 should be fine. As for all the other, my question is that we're building very big buildings. And are we going, so let's say it's a Category 3 that comes to Boynton Beach, are we going to be able to house our residents who are unable to leave in an amount of time?
That's a policy decision by the commission. These buildings are designed with life-saving equipment in them, life protection equipment in the buildings. All the buildings will be designed to be run on generator power. So with power outages, we're able to run these buildings. So take example, the high school. Even though that's an old building, we're putting impact glass in, things like that, so it'll withstand those hurricanes. So if it's the policy decision of the commission to use those buildings for housing, they certainly will be able to be used for that.
Thank you.
I would like to see the information brought back for a Cat 5 for the PD department.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions regarding the structural before we move on to the financial? Seeing none. Tim, please begin.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So what this slide is a summary I tried to do of the overall project cost, which Colin covered most of them in the previous slides. And the succeeding slides will break each of these areas down a little bit. So what you have is at the top, we're calling it city building and site infrastructure. The subtotal is $76.1 million. You can refer to these funding sources, but I'll elaborate on future slides a little bit more. That funding source is a bond issue. The site utilities that Colin mentioned was $3 million, district energy 11.5, high school $11 million, parking the 10.2. And the last two numbers are cost that we're going to incur with this project that doesn't really fit into any of the above categories. One is additional furniture that we'll need at the end after the buildings are built. The city will move as much of the existing furniture as we can, but obviously the buildings are larger than what we currently have, especially in like the PD area. So there will be some need at the end of the construction period. And the other cost is the interim move cost, which we'll discuss a little bit more in detail on one of the slides, but it's the cost of moving the police staff, the city hall staff, and the library staff out of the buildings that they currently exist in into temporary spacing we're estimating a period of 24 months while these buildings are taken down and the new buildings are constructed, and then moving them back into the new buildings. So that, for the furniture and that cost, it comes to 6.2. So the total project cost that we're looking at right now is about $118.3 million.
Tim?
Huh?
Are we looking at, I know we had the discussion, it was brought up in a discussion about the possibility of leasing office furniture,
Yes.
as an option.
So the $3 million figure is a number that Colin and I put in. One, to either purchase the furniture as we need it as we move back in, or if we go into leasing furniture, if it makes sense in certain areas of the buildings, it will still be a cost. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands there's going to be an additional cost of something, either leased furniture or permanent furniture, or purchasing of it. So this slide is, again, some of this is going to be repetitive, and I apologize, but the numbers are a little bit bigger, so people may be able to see it a little bit better. So these are the costs for the city public buildings and the open space and the demolition and everything. And these are the costs that are payable out of a tax-exempt bond. So on this side of the slide, you have the total of 76.1. On this side is the funding mechanism for it. We have advertised a TEFRA that we'll do a formal TEFRA hearing in a minute. Excuse me. And we stated that CFP would issue a bond not to exceed $78 million. The anticipated issuance date of that is June or July of this year, pending the approval today to move forward. And then the final maturity of that bond would be June or July 2044. which coincides with the sunset date existing for the CRA. Based on the maximum amount of the bond, if we issue up to $78 million in this type of maturity schedule, the city's annual lease payment to CFP, because CFP is the nonprofit 501c3 that's going to actually be issuing the bond itself. So we'll be making a lease payment to CFP, and they'll be paying the debt service. The annual payment will run between 4.4 and 5.1 per year for the next 25 years. 1 year will be 4.4, and outer year is 5.1, 1 year is 4.9, so that's just the range. And the funding for that payment will come from the city resources and the CRA funding. You'll see the CRA funding with an ILA agreement that is on both your CRA agenda for tonight and your city commission meetings for tonight.
Tim, while you're talking about bond, what is the total bond debt service for this city as we speak, as I'm sitting here now?
As we speak right now, the city has a public service tax debt outstanding, and our lease payment is about $2.2 million a year. It's paid off in the year 26, 27, or 27, 28, one of those fiscal years.
Like 26, 27, 2026 or 2027?
2026. It's the fiscal year, sorry. Fiscal year 2026, 27. And the CRA is in a very similar situation. I don't mean to speak for Mike, but I've looked at the schedule. So their current debt is also paid off in the same.
Okay, since you don't need to speak for Mike, Mike, speak for yourself. I need to know.
Good evening, City Commissioners. Mike Simon, Executive Director with the CRA. The CRA's current debt service expires in fiscal year 2026-27. The value of our current debt service is about $2,300,000 per year.
So what I'm looking at is after 2026, I'm just saying the debt service is retired, then you have money to pick up that full point, whatever it's going to be. I'm looking out, way out. I'm just saying, you know, we got about 10 years before we get there. Okay.
Thank you.
This slide just shows you the site utilities that Colin referenced earlier of $3 million and the cost of the district energy plan of $11.5. So the $3 million is currently budgeted in the approved utility CIP plan, and we have cash within the existing utility for these site utilities. We had planned on doing utility work anyway downtown, so that cost would be paid for out of the utility capital improvement plan. The $11.5 million for the district energy plant will be paid for. We will issue a utility bond or bank note. We're working with the bond counsel and finance people right now. After today, we'll finalize exactly what type of document it is and what financing source. They will be repaid just like our utility bonds are. It's from the user fees. So the plan for the district energy plant is that it will service all of the public buildings. So we, just like we do our water, we pay water fees. We'll pay a district energy fee for the chilled water that we get. It also will go to all the private development in the town square area and to a couple of projects that are surrounding the town square that are coming online. They've already agreed to sign up for it. So those user fees will be what's used to pay back that bond or note over the next 15 to 17 years. So it won't be coming out of the general fund, it will be coming out of the CRA funding.
Stop, sorry. What do you anticipate the revenue from users fee?
Do you remember that? I'm sorry.
It's when we have a financial model that shows that the debt service payment plus operational costs plus all your consumables plus your labor and everything else, we're going to be able to offer rates about 5% less than what they would pay for electric. The overall number per year, I will have to get you because I can't remember that off the top of my head. But it's more than what the debt, it covers everything plus a little bit of extra coming back to the city, just like our rest of our utilities.
Colin, you know, I appreciate what you're telling me, but these are figures that I need to be hearing when I'm in a discussion, you know, and I'm not putting nobody on the spot, but I'm just saying, you know, when I'm dealing with money and it's this big, I'm trying to look at what will be the outcome and what will be the income. I'm trying to balance this to make sure that I'm doing the right thing for the citizens here in the city of Boynton. I do need those figures. Thank you.
All right. And Colin, I have a similar question, because most of this is for the Town Square project. What percentage of the new district energy plan is going to be used by Town Square? In the sense that, how much is the revenue coming from Town Square to pay for the district energy plan?
I think, is your question how much the government buildings will pay toward it?
Government and the
Right.
commercial.
It's, right now, we're designing a 2,700-ton plant. The government buildings are between 700 and 900 tons of that, and the rest is private. So it's probably about a third from government and the rest from private. And I'm going to try to look up that other question we had here shortly, if I can get to some place where I can look it up, and I'll provide that answer. We do have a revenue model that does show that in the first 3 years, as we're adding customers in, as with any utility, it runs in the red, and that's what the utility funds, and then it runs in the black, and it pays back that borrowing that it'll borrow. And then for the next, however long you're going to run it, it runs in the black, and there actually be a profit margin, not a profit, we don't call it profit, but like we do with the other utilities, we do a transfer back. There'll be a transfer back out of the utilities.
So this is to pay for, the energy in Town Square.
That's correct.
And so let's say, regardless of what happens with the other customers, because you have to build your project into this, will Town Square be able to fund the district energy?
Yes, our financial model's just on the 16.5 acres, not including the other developments that have come in and said, we want to connect.
So when the final residential and hotel and commercials gets built, we will be able to start going in the black.
Right, and we build this in phases, so we only build what we have coming online. So let's take an off-site. I'm just going to use one. The Villages at Boynton Beach. They have come and said, we want to connect to Chillwater. That's where we want our energy source. We have not included that in the financial model until they come in, and we also won't build what they need until they come in. So we only build what we need, just like we do in water and sewer. It's the same principle. We build as we need as the customers come in, so it pays for itself.
So this district energy plant will be able to expand?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next is the high school, and as you know, it's under construction presently. Cost estimated at $11 million. The funding for this one is a little different than the previous slides and the future slides, because we're already into construction and doing work over there. So what we currently have is, you've previously approved a purchase order of $3 million towards the cost of this refurbishment. You have an item on your agenda later tonight to enter into a consulting agreement with a company to pursue new market tax credits that we've talked about briefly over the last year. That is a federal program that they are very confident. They've already talked about the project out in the new market sector, have received very good responses. They're waiting for the agreement to be passed tonight so they can go out and finalize those agreements with those new market tax credits. And the short version of what that is they're estimating that we're going to be able to get $2.5 million worth of federal money towards this project. There's a long process to say that, but in essence, it's cash into the project. It's a cash infusion into the project, which will offset the cost. So that $2.5 million will be used to pay towards the $11 million construction cost. In addition to the new market tax credits, there's a process and a feature that will be eligible for, which is a new market tax credit leveraged loan that some financial institutions offer if you qualify and receive the new market tax credits. We're looking at pursuing one of those loans for the balance of this $5.5 million, and the reason for that is a timing issue. The old high school is not eligible to be paid for out of tax-exempt bonds, so we needed to find funding to pay for this project and to keep it going, so we don't stall the project. So we're going to be looking at taking out a loan for this $5.5 million, which there's no prepayment penalty clause. We can pay it off at any time. Interest rates are running right under 3%. I'm projecting that we'll take it out for about 12 to 18 months at the most. So if we take the $5.5 million out, we still currently have $1.6 million of CRA funding that you've approved in your CRA budget towards the town square in the current existing year that hasn't been utilized. So we could use that to pay towards the project or towards the loan. The loan for the 12 months will get us past the time period of October 1st, 2018, which is we begin a new fiscal year for both the city and the CRA. So in the city's CIP program for next year, we had identified in this year's program that in our sales tax projects, there was a number of projects that we had listed that we had earmarked to be done that were for the buildings that we're going to take down. So those costs total about $4.5 million for next year that we were going to program into town square somehow. So I'm suggesting that we use $3 million of that next year towards the old high school cost. It's a perfect project for the surtax. If you remember when the surtax was passed, it was for deferred maintenance that cities and counties haven't done over the past few years. So I think everybody can agree that that old high school probably fits into that category. Part of the funding from the CRA for next year, when we did our initial funding schedule for the city and the CRA for this project, we were estimating a bond issue of about $84 million. And those are the numbers that we've been utilizing throughout the process. As you remember on the previous slide, the maximum amount of bond that we're going to issue is $78 million. So there could be some funds from the CRA left that we could use to pay off the last $960,000. That would pay the high school off completely by the end of the calendar year or the first quarter of 2019.
Tim, in regards to surtax funds, this will not impede on anything that we're doing, like to sidewalks, et cetera, that we're doing here in this city. I'm just saying.
No. We currently have, our current year, we have a couple $1 million programmed for sidewalks and paving, which will bleed over or run over into the next year. It'll also leave about $1.5 million next year that the commission will have the ability to appropriate for projects, be it sidewalks, be it.
My take is that, I don't see that much happening. If you all could tell me what's happening, we're getting money, but I don't see that much happening. I need to know if minorities companies are being brought in. Right. I'm just saying, we have the money. I want to make sure we're using it right.
Yeah, our next quarterly report will be coming to you in April, and if I can, I'll go over that then. We are in the process, I'll just give you a quick, we're in the process of doing some of the bigger projects, but they're bids for like paving, and painting, and we're getting those to go out on the street, and we're having to restructure those to look at to try to encourage local participation. So it's taking us a little longer than what we had anticipated, but once they go in place, they're going to be in place for multiple years, which will cover us in the future years. So this is the startup year.
I'll wait for your report in April.
Thank you. So the next part is the parking spaces that we talked about earlier. So the parking spaces, instead of us building the garage, we're going to pay for the cost of our parking spaces within the garages. And that total comes to $10.2 million. In order to fund that, what we're proposing is that the land that the garages sit on and the land that the private developer needs for the residential build-out, all that acreage has a value. So the value that we are looking at per acre is $1.25 million. So in order to cover our cost of the parking spaces of 10.2, the land value, and this is a function of acreage times the 1.25 million. I just didn't put the detail here. The land value under the south garage is about $1 million. The land value under the north garage is $1.1 million. The land value for the south residential properties is $2.9 million, and the land value for the north residential is $3.1. That still leaves a $1.9 million payment that we need to make to the developer for our spaces. That will come out of the bond issue once the bond issue is issued, and it's classified as a lease payment in the bond, and we'll turn around and pay that to the developer based on the agreement that we signed, and it's prorated based on when they get a construction loan or when they get site plan approval. So it's not immediate. There's something they have to do in order to get the payment. And that will pay for the parking spaces that we have. So in essence, the first 4 pieces is the city.
Stop, excuse me. Land lease payments, how many years are we saying the city's going to have to pay this lease to?
25 is the bond. It's out of the bond.
It's coming in 25 years, we're going to be locked into renting spaces.
No, the spaces, then that's different. This is the payment of the spaces. We're going to have a parking license agreement for 50 years. Is that what it is? I think it's.
Oh.
Wait, he's looking it up.
I think the parking license agreement is 50 years, if I remember the contract correctly.
Okay, the license agreement for 50 years, will we be paying that amount for 50 years?
We'll be paying a maintenance fee for those spaces for the 50 years.
You have the price for the maintenance fee?
The estimated is $190,000 a year, I think. And that's an operating cost for the spaces versus us building the garage and paying all the maintenance costs with the garage, which would be the other option.
Tim, what are we paying per space? What does it come down to dollar-wise?
Comes down to 22 to 24,000, and it could be 23.5. I don't have the number right, but
It varies from each garage. Is a little bit different, but it's between 22 and 24,000. So you can say an average of 23,000 per space is what we're paying, and that's average for a parking garage.
Nothing cheap about them.
And like Tim said, we are buying those spaces, and then the annual cost is just maintenance cost, which is that $190,000 per year divided amongst all the spaces, and that's just to maintain the structures.
And we don't plan on charging for these spaces for public use?
That is a policy decision by the commission.
It's up to you.
That's up to you.
we'll be discussing that at a future
None of
date.
that, no revenue or anything at that point is factored into this at all,
Right.
so we're assuming no, and then I think as downtown grows and into the future, you may want to seriously consider it, but it's a policy decision.
And I think if you look at cities that have put parking garages in place, and I'll use that as a structure, even though we are buying our spots, normally they don't charge for the initial couple years until the area becomes activated, and then they start charging. So I think in a couple years, we'll be having this discussion about if the commission wants to go that route or not.
And if the commission doesn't, we're not counting that revenue.
Right.
So my questions is regarding the spaces. Are we getting like the bottom floor spaces so that it's easiest for the residents and city staff? And my other question is, what was the appraisal to determine the land value for this? Or what, you know?
There's multiple appraisals that were used. There's a lot of different numbers out there. This was a negotiated appraisal rate between appraisals that were done in 2015, 2016, 2018, 2017. There's been a lot of appraisals that we used to come to an average amount, and that's how we came up with, and it's $1.25 million an acre is the number that we're using, that we've agreed to present to you as the appraised value.
And that's both, you know, the acreage that is on the north block and the south block. So
Right,
that
because
is
it's an average amongst all. Yes, there might be some that's a little bit more, but then there's some that's less. So it's an average across all of the
Right,
acreage.
because the Boynton Beach frontage is more than the...
Yes, but
on
the other one's
southeast.
less. So if you average it across, it actually works well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the last piece is, again, these numbers that don't seem to fit into a good category for me. So what I did on this slide was just to try to lay out again the possible $3 million for some type of furniture, or at least cost for furniture. The interim move is really made up from three pieces. The initial move to the temporary space, we're estimating at $350,000 to move everybody. The temporary lease space, which is the monthly payments over the next 24 months, which has to do with those letters of interest that we asked you to approve at the last commission meeting. And then the cost, that's not correct, anyway, to move from the temporary space back into the buildings once they're built, and that's $350,000.
Your first temporary is misspelled, am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct there.
Oh, that is.
And-
Yes.
And this shouldn't be cost of for initial move, this is cost of final move, but anyway, from the temporary space. So this 6.287 million. So what I did here was I just listed for you potential funding areas to cover these costs. And remember that some of these costs are going to be spread out over 24 months, and some of them are going to be at the end of the project, and some are going to be, the initial move will be right away. But part of the 16 acres is the corner of Boynton Beach Boulevard and Seacrest, which is what we're calling the hotel site. That parcel of land, based on the same per acre average price of 1.25, will be sold to the hotel developer, and that value is 1.75 million. So we'll have a check for that we can use towards these costs. The public buildings that we're going to construct in Town Square, all of the contractors will pay permit fees. And we're estimating those to be 1.5 million. And again, from a budgetary standpoint, you as policymakers can recognize that revenue and appropriate that revenue as expenses in whatever manner we recommend and you agree with. And that manner could be to pay for monthly lease payments, or it could be to pay for furniture in year 3 or something. But these are just potential areas. The other part is I just put on here general fund operating budget replaces expenses for current buildings over the 24 months. So for the 24 months that we're in the temporary spaces, you know, these buildings are coming down and we're not going to be paying the expenses associated with it, but we're going to be paying a lease payment instead. So instead of paying electric bills here at the library and the maintenance costs that we pay for equipment maintenance that are attached to the building may just be redirected to cover this monthly lease payment that we're paying for the lease space. We don't know what those exact numbers are. I just put it there as an amount showing that part of this cost is going to be in our general operating over the next 24 months because we're going to pay it on a monthly basis. There's no way to, we're not paying it up front, we're not paying it at the end. It only makes sense, it's an operating cost for us for the next 24 months.
Tim, let me ask you a question. We're talking about fees. Since this is a city project, will we be inquiring or getting art fee funds?
Yes, art fee is charged to all the projects.
Tim, that temporary lease, you're basing that on a 24-month period. And we haven't really, to my knowledge, we haven't negotiated any leases yet, per se, correct? So how can you be so sure that 2.5 million monthly? That could...
We're sure based on some of the estimated numbers that Collins received from the broker up to this point. They're not finalized numbers. You're absolutely correct.
Okay, let's say it takes, let's say it takes 36 months or 48 months. Where are we going to get that extra 5 million?
So my understanding is all of the leases, the 3 leases that we're looking at, will have extensions or renewals to cover that outside possibility that we'll need to stay in it for another 12 months. And the cost for that will continue just like the first 24 months. It'll be in our general operating budget. It'll be, we won't be paying the cost in the new buildings because they're not going to be up yet, if that's the case. And remember that the leases are for 3 separate things. So one's the library, one's the city hall, and one's for the police. So if you look at the buildings that are being built, you know, if one of the buildings come online within the 24 months, like the police station, then we can move the police station in, and hypothetically, if the city hall and library has to get extended, we'll have to extend those leases. Vice versa, if the city hall library gets completed in the 24 months, we can end those 2 leases and just maintain the police one. So it would, you know, it'll be very important for us to monitor this project, obviously, through construction. So if we can open one building in the 24 months, we can get rid of one of the leases. But we'll have the extension feature in the leases, and if we do have to go past the 24 months, it'll be a normal monthly lease payment still.
In our contract with contractors, a written contract, are there benchmarks, certain things that they have to hit at certain days along the construction thing? Project?
Yes, there are. And
Okay.
There's certain dates they have to hit. There'll be completion dates they have to hit. There's liquidated damages that we put in them if they don't hit them. And so we have all of those built into the contracts to build these buildings to make sure everybody performs as they said. Remember, the schedule right now is about 18 months of construction, and we're looking at 24 months lease. So we're already giving ourselves some time for the things exactly like you say. Sometimes things don't go exactly as planned, so we want to give ourselves a little bit of extra time just in case. But yeah, we build in all of those check marks, just like we do in every project, all those key checkpoints that they have to meet and to then continue on.
Thank you.
I'm with Commissioner Castillo on this lease thing. 24 months, I feel, is not going to be enough because, let's be realistic, I'm just saying the city has never done anything. I'm just saying when they said that this was going to end, I'm just saying there's always a problem, there's an extension, so I'm already looking ahead for an extension.
My concern was is that we had the option maybe to wait until the City Hall library is fixed before moving the City Hall and police station. The main concern is that we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years regarding the building cycle that we are currently in. We have everything in place right now, and what the number that I know the potential funding number for the general fund operating budget is an estimate, but currently we are spending more on our City Hall, we're trying to repair it, our police station trying to repair it, and library trying to repair it, than what the lease payments are going to be moving away. And so instead of spending money to keep this place, the library, the City Hall, and the police station open for those 2 years and then wait another 2 years for development to start for the commercial areas, we are going to have expediting everything for our Town Square project, and it is not necessarily costing us. The major concern is that our residents are going to have to go to a new place for City Hall. And I think that, because of the liquidated damages clause that we have, it is going to be something that we need because we want to make sure that this project goes through. And by saying that, okay, we're going to tear everything down so we can build it up all at once is a lot better than trying to piece it out over time, because as you may know, when you wait to do something, there's a good chance that it won't be done. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to disagree with you because I'm just saying we have money in the CIP budget, and I'm just saying, fixing, when we built this library and we added on to it about 10 years ago, this was supposed to be for 20 or 30 years. That was told me when I was sitting as a commission, so I cannot buy that right now, and I'm just saying it's a tough pill to swallow, fixing things. I'm just saying, when was the last time you all fixed something in the police department? When the last time you all fixed something over here? How much money do we have total for these 3 projects as CIP funding?
I don't know off the top of my head, Commissioner.
I know that. Okay. We can go.
All right. Next is back to Colin.
Okay, so before I cover this slide real quick, you asked a question about district energy, and I did get the numbers, and I had to get them in front of me, and I couldn't use my computer. Over the 48-month period of startup, building the plant, startup, getting people connected, at the end, our model shows a revenue of between $2.5 and $2.6 million a year with an expenditure of about $2.1 to $2.2. So it's about a $400,000 additional funds coming into the utility at the reduced rates that everybody will be paying, and that's just for Town Square. That does not include any of the development outside of Town Square. So I just wanted to give you those numbers. And it does vary every month because in colder months you don't use as much, and hotter months you use more, but those are the averages across those years.
You able to print that copy out? I'm just saying.
We'll get you,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I will consolidate the model and get it to you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give you those numbers because you would
I
ask.
wrote them down.
Those are for how many years, Colin?
That's about a 48-month period while we're doing the startup, and then once you get past that, it runs in the black every month. So then you have a startup where you have to build the plant and you have revenue going out, but you don't have customers paying yet, and it takes about 18 months.
So you're saying technically those first 3 years were not in the red?
In first
or we
18
may have
months-
some months, like the winter months, where we are in the red? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, there's going to be about 18 months where we operate in the red. At the end of those 18 months, we're somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000 in the red. The next 18 months, we operate in the black, and within about 12 months, we pay off what's in that red, and then we're in the black making money. So it's about a 48-month, but over that time frame, it's about $2.5 million a year in revenue and about $2.1 million in expenditures.
Okay.
So the expenditures are less than revenues. I think that was the question.
Yeah. Tim, a few questions for you. Regarding the $1.6 million for CRA funding, that's what we've already allocated, not additional, correct?
Correct.
And then For the $190,000 a year that's budgeted, is that already budgeted within our future budgets?
Is that
or
for
we're gonna be
the
adding
parking
for the
space
parking
maintenance?
spaces, the lease payments?
No, it will be, it'll be factored in once the parking garages come online, which is 18 months out, so it wouldn't be next fiscal year, it'd be the next fiscal year.
Right. So I know that we talked about possibly the fact that the next couple of years after building down, or these next couple of years will be kind of tight, but that money is already considered in the
In the-
future budgets, correct?
Yeah, we've got it on our list to program in.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to do my best, from a layman's terms, to cover the contract structure that this project is being proposed to be constructed under. On the left is the city, which we are the ultimate owners of the project, and so we are the people trying to get this thing moving and building. And we're going to have contracts with three groups. The first one is called CFP Boynton Beach Town Square, LLC, and they're going to be responsible for building the City Hall Library, Fire Station 1, Police Headquarters, the parks, the open space, and the utilities and the infrastructure. And that's being funded by that private activity bond, or that bond that Tim talked about. The next group is E2L Real Estate Solutions, LLC, and they're going to be responsible for the high school and district energy. They're also responsible for managing the rest of those projects and during construction to make sure it's all coordinated. So they really have two roles. One is to build a couple projects, and the other one is to manage the rest and make sure they're coordinated. And of course, the high school, we talked about all of the funding sources for the high school, and the district energy is out of the ratepayers that we discussed. And then the third party we're going to have a contract with is JKM Development. They're a private developer that's building the parking garages, of which about 465 spaces will be for city use. And payment for that is, as Tim described, is the land sale proceeds. So I want to just give you the structure of the contracts that we're going to be moving into.
Colin, since we're going to
Yes.
be moving into contracts, who's going to be from the city responsible for making sure that they are on task?
There will be a project team.
Who will they be reporting to?
There's the executive team will be ultimately responsible, which is your city manager and myself and Tim ultimately responsible. We will have a project team made up of project manager and several project team members, engineers, accountants, inspectors, and others that it takes to build these big projects. You need people to manage that everyday activity. We're going to have office space right here that they're going to be in, locally on site, and they'll be managing that daily activity to make sure all of these contract conditions are being met on a daily basis, and we're getting what we've agreed to in the contracts.
I'm looking at you three. Have we decided who will be on these teams? I'm just saying, you guys.
CFP, the nonprofit funding that's doing the activity bonds, will be having a project manager. Our master developer, E2L, will provide a project manager. Colin will be sitting on the team this is during construction where there are boots on the ground. Andrew's going to be
Yeah.
assisting with the construction, as well as our building department will be very embedded and embroiled in this project, obviously, from an inspection standpoint. And who else on the team, the actual project team?
We'll be hiring some contract employees that'll be on our part of the team that we don't have yet. And Andrew, is moving to Public Works Director, as you all are aware, and he is going to be the lead, day-to-day, boots on the ground, working with the team, including myself, but I have other activities too. So, but we have several people within the city that have the experience to manage these large projects, and we don't want to have just one person because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We want to have multiple people that are involved daily.
Since we're spending funds from the CRA, will we have someone from the CRA on one of these teams?
We can certainly do that, absolutely. Michael will be involved.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Michael will be involved.
Can we get Jeff Livergood on the team?
He's leaving.
He's going to be leaving me.
Maybe this will entice him to stay.
That's
We've
why he's
offered.
leaving.
We tried.
I have a question. Regarding the art fee, so we as a city, we're not exempt from that as developers? No. We can't exempt ourselves from that as developers?
Then if you do, you can't charge anybody.
Okay, so tonight there's going to be, we're going to follow this, and I just wanted to cover this real quick and while you get into the agenda, and this does follow your agenda, and these are actions that the staff is recommending for tonight, or this afternoon by the board. And the first one is to conduct a public hearing that acknowledges that capital improvement bond. That's the TEFRA hearing that you'll conduct first. The next thing is as the CRA board and then as the city commission to approve the interlocal agreement between the CRA and the city to fund that portion of the project that's being funded through the CRA project funds. And the next thing is a required resolution by the city, is a resolution to do a budget amendment. There are some budget changes we have to make just to make the project, because we're making changes in the budget this year. And so since the budget's already approved, Tim needs to do a budget amendment. Then we're going to do a Phase 2 services agreement with E2L. That's for the high school, the construction of the district energy plant, and the management services for all of the other projects. The next one is with CFP Boynton Beach Town Square LLC. That's the company that's going to be building the rest of the facilities. City Hall, library, fire station, all the open space, and the associated site work and the road work. And they have a resolution, a master development agreement, and attached to that resolution are a ground lease agreement and a facilities lease agreement that we're asking you to approve as to form. And then the lawyers will finalize some of the little small pieces of it prior to it being signed, but to form, it's ready to be approved as to form. Atwater Infrastructure, that's the company that's doing the new market tax credits, and so there's a contract with them to go out and do that work, to go get that money under new market tax credits. And then the last one is the private development with JKM, and that's a resolution for the purchase and sale agreements for the properties, the parking license agreement, development agreement, and the option agreement. That's included in that resolution. So with that, I'm going to just open up questions for the board.
Just one quick question, Tim. Colin.
Okay.
The power, the utility plant, the power plant, where is this going to be located?
Currently, right now, it's located on the Town Square project, adjacent to the north garage.
That's next to the old place?
It's behind, it would be kind of, not exactly behind, but kind of behind the whole, on the north side of the old high school. I shouldn't say behind, because buildings now have 4 sides, but it's on the north side of the high school, adjacent to the garage.
Okay.
It's actually built into the garage a little bit, so it sets into the garage, so, but it is a separate structure.
That's subject to change, though, correct?
And that could change as we get into final design. Remember, we've done preliminary design. We're asking for tonight to move to that final design, and over the next 60 days, all of that design work is going to occur if you approve us to move forward.
And we're looking at some off-site properties.
Right.
That's what I think the Commissioner's referring
Right.
to, potentially down off of 4th Street, working with Mr. Dalmeda.
Right. If we can find an off-site property, it might save us some money. So if we can do that, we want to do most cost-effective, but we have a plan to put it on-site right now, and that's the plan we're moving forward to unless something comes up. But we have to build it fairly quickly, so.
Any further questions from the commission?
When do we factor in donors and sponsorship opportunities? When does that come in play?
I think you're going to be seeing that. That topic is not a guarantee. So I think once we start building and start construction, I think we're going to be coming back to you to address that and see what manner we want to address that in. Until I think we start taking down the buildings and start work on the area and people actually see it, I think we'll be in a much better place to market it. And so it was our decision to move forward with the new market tax credits now, and we'll come back to you about the either naming rights or sponsorships or things like that, and we'll see what the best avenue is and the best way to procure that type of service from companies. We still need to look into that a little bit more. But I think we'll be in a better place to market it as people see things going on and not
It's not a concept
and a vision.
Yeah.
And Colin, within the conceptual map, where have we factored in, for example, ride sharing or bike sharing or any of those types of amenities?
Right. We have several drop-off locations we've identified for that, Uber stops, Lyft stops, bus stops. We do want to encourage the alternative transportation into the town square because, again, remember, one of the things that we know is going to happen is there are going to be a lot of events going on. And we wanted people coming here not just by car, but by alternative transportation. So we are designing in all of those kind of stops throughout the site, not just in one place. You need them on Boynton Beach Boulevard, but you also need them internal to the site. So we are working on those. So right now, there's one on Boynton Beach Boulevard, there's one on Seacrest, there's one on, I'm thinking it's Southeast First, where close to City Hall. So if you come to City Hall, you can, right there. And most likely in front of the Schoolhouse Children's Museum, there's already a drop-off there area, and we're going to maintain that drop-off area.
And are these covered, like for the bus stops, are they covered?
Some of them will be, some of them won't be. That's final design. We'll decide. We definitely want to do as much out of the weather as possible. That's connecting garages to buildings, so you can park in a garage, you can walk to a building with being out of the weather. Of course, if you're coming to an event in the park, you're going to be in the weather anyways because you're outside. But yeah, we're going to try to do as much as possible so people come downtown. It's very comfortable to come with an alternative transportation, get out and walk to where you're going very easily and safely. That's the other thing. A lot of pedestrian access throughout the site, so you're not walking on a road. Hope that answers your question.
Good. And so now it's the public audience. And so I looked it up. The TEFRA is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. So this is a federal law. The TEFRA hearing purpose is to allow interested persons an opportunity to express their views for or against the issuance of the bonds to pay for Town Square.
Right. We're not quite at that public hearing yet.
No, we're not.
This is the public's opportunity to comment on the PowerPoint presentation and the project in general, and then we're going to recess to the CRA. They're going to do a little bit of work.
Okay.
Then we're going to come back and do the public hearing on the TEFRA.
So this is not the public issuance of the bonds, this is just the whole Town Square project?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Thank you.
And we have, Mike is in the back there with the portable mic, so if someone wants to speak, just please raise your hand. The mayor will acknowledge you. You need to state your name and address for the record, and please speak clearly into the mic for us.
Sound check. Hi, Harry Woodworth. I live at 685 Northeast 15th Place in Boynton. I've got a couple questions. The schedule you presented way back at the beginning there, maybe Colin, is that, if your job depended on the private sector, a best-case schedule, a most likely schedule, or a worst-case schedule?
That's the schedule that the contractors have given us that they can meet. So that tells me it's a middle-of-the-road schedule.
So you think that's a most likely schedule?
The most likely schedule.
Okay.
We have some slip room in there if we need it.
Okay, and in the contract, is there going to be a place where we can look at the scope of work, the schedule of values, and some of the normal contract stuff, or is that just all inside and you don't get to look at it?
No, absolutely.
When will that be available?
As we develop it, we'll open it up anytime somebody wants to see it. We're going to try to create a website and start putting a lot of information on it. That's part of this process in Phase 2 is develop that website and start listing that information so it's very easy to get to and very easy to see. We definitely want the public input throughout the design also.
Okay, and then my last question was, how will change orders be approved? Will the commission get to vote on change orders? How will that be managed?
These are design-build contracts, so the only change orders that will be done is ones that are initiated by the city, which means the commission. So if the commission says, we want to, I'm just going to give an example, and I'm not saying y'all will do this, so don't quote me on this, but they say they want to build I'm going to make something ridiculous, so nobody quotes me on it, a 15-story, building with a tower on top that they can put their offices in.
I want to do that.
If they want to do that, then that would be an owner-initiated change order that would come from the commission back to the contractors. The contractors design-build, so they're giving us a guaranteed maximum price, so they don't do change orders over top of that. I think that answers your question. Okay.
Suzanne Ross, Schoolhouse Children's Museum. I, too, have a couple of questions. Is it anticipated that the Civic Center is going to be torn down at the same time as the other structure is being taken down?
Yes. Right now, the anticipation is all of the buildings that will be taken down would start in about July 1st of this year, with approval, if we move forward. So, yes, the answer is yes.
So the next question is that after school, an extraordinary number of children use this library for both tutoring and various activities. Is there anything in place to accommodate those children, or are they going to have nothing to do and randomly?
No, we are looking to lease, it's one of the lease spaces we're looking at, which is right across the street. There's a building next to the post office, and believe it or not, it's about 5,000 square foot building, and we're looking to lease that and to turn it into a place for kids to go after school for their studying, to access computers. There'll be some books. It'll be AmeriCorps will be in there, and those library activities that serve those functions. When you have construction, you don't want them in the construction zone. So we're going to isolate areas where they can get off school just like they do now, walk very safely, and approach these areas very safely to enter them to use those services. So we're definitely going to have that library annex. We think that's really important in the downtown to keep that access to all of those services. Albeit it's a smaller space. So there may be times where there's a little porch and they may be sitting out in the porch for a short period of time. But
they have a place to go. That's the most important part. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Audrey Gerger. I live at 331 Northwest First Street. I have the historical house. I'm curious, you zipped through the whole village there. Can you bring it back and go into step by step the areas? I have no idea what's going on. Okay, can someone go up there and show us what is going into each site?
Yeah, and you're right, we went through this. We've had several public workshops with this, but I'll be glad to show it again, because I enjoy talking about this. I'm going to make sure, there we go. So, this is 16 and a half acres. So it starts right here. This is a hotel site. This is a parking garage site. These are residential units on the top floor, commercial, retail, and this is, again, residential with commercial restaurants and retail along Ocean. This is the schoolhouse museum that remains and enhanced. This is the high school that's being refurbished right now. This is Kids Kingdom for the smaller kids' playground. This is what we call the active play area for families. This is what we call our town square. This is our big park with an amphitheater. This is the new City Hall Library here on this block, overlooking the park here and overlooking the park here. This is residential wrapping another parking garage on the south side. Fire Station 1 is built over here. This is Fire Station 1, which is a 3-bay full-service fire station. And then we show this site because this developer's come in, even though the city doesn't own that project and control it, he's looking to redevelop his project, his property also. And yes, he is in contact with the post office. We know the post office there, and he's working with the post office to redevelop that site with the post office. So does that answer your question?
You talk about residential.
Oh, yeah.
Will they be part of our district energy customer as well?
Absolutely. Yes. And when he redevelops, absolutely. We're going to expand to whoever needs the energy we want to bring on as customers.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, Barbara Riddy, 329 Southwest 13th Avenue. My question pertains to what's going to happen to all the construction debris. Are any efforts going to be made to recycle material from this construction debris that we're going to have oodles of? Where is it all going to go? Are we going to try to save copper, pipes, anything? Or is it all going to a landfill?
No, it's much cheaper to recycle all of the construction debris than it is to take it to the landfill. So they'll be recycling concrete. Everything that they can recycle will be recycled, just like we did on the water plant. Recycled almost 90% of the material we took out was recycled in through the process. And we'll be doing the same thing. We are looking at doing some certifications on the City Hall library building called Green Globes. That's an energy efficiency certification that we're looking at for government structures. So yes, the answer is the contractors will want to recycle as much as they can because it saves them money, and they make a little bit more money. So recycling is a good thing when it comes to demolition.
Colin, whose job will it be to maintain a clean site and make sure that we're good neighbors to our surrounding neighbors?
It will be in each contractor's contract, and then it feeds up to E2L, which is the master developer, and then the city. So it's the city's project staff, which will be making sure that every contractor is doing their part to keep the site clean. That's probably one of the most important parts of this project, especially during demolition, is to bring in professionals that know how to do it, that don't make a mess. But as I say with every construction project, there is some dirt that happens during construction. Our job is to keep it to a minimum and keep it off the roads and definitely keep it out of the neighborhoods. So it's a team effort, starting with the contractors, with our master developer, and with the city staff that's going to be overseeing the project.
Right, and in my opinion, I'm expecting to see continuous oversight, especially with some of the issues that we had with 500, with fences falling and things like that. I wouldn't want to see us being in the same predicament or doing the same thing to our surrounding neighbors.
Right. We just finished a water plant, $30 million water plant. We did not have those issues. We were very good about keeping our site and being good neighbors. We only got one complaint during that whole project, and that really wasn't, I hate to say it wasn't legitimate because it was a complaint, but it really wasn't anything that we could have done anything about. The site was clean. It just that they didn't like the fact that there was construction. I can't fix that.
I got one complaint that was legit that I brought to you. I'm just saying.
Right. There was a couple of complaints.
Now let me move on. And since we're talking about being good neighbors, when the construction starts, where will the construction workers park?
We're working on that right now. If you look at get my pointer here. This is the area that we'll be using for phasing right now, this area. because, and probably some of this area. These are going to be, the parks will be built last because we need places to put materials, we need places for workers to park. They'll also be required, if they need off-site parking, they'll be required to go find that and park and then bus their workers in. So it's part of our next phase when we're designing it. We have to make sure we account for every worker and where their cars go and where they park to make sure it's a very safe environment. This is, I'm not hitting you, when we say this is a tight site. It says 16 acres, but it's a very tight site to work on, and it's going to take a lot of coordination, which is why we like this concept of having the master developer being in charge of all of the project to make sure all of that coordination happens along with city staff. So our team will be there every day, making sure it's being coordinated, and if there's any problem that comes up, they'll be able to adjust it right then, right there, and solve it, so it doesn't become a problem for anybody else.
Colin, just a quick question, segue into that. As far as the workers, well, what about construction vehicles, the traffic they're going to generate, especially at the intersection of Seacrest and Boynton Beach Boulevard? How are we going to abate that and help that along?
Well, first, that has to be coordinated. So when you're bringing in, let's say we're bringing in concrete beams, big trucks coming in, we're going to have to coordinate when that comes in. Most likely, that's at night. You don't do that in the middle of the day. You do that at night. You bring them in, you offload them, and then you move the trucks back out. That's all part of coordinating the job site. And during design, the maintenance of traffic and the ingress and egress to the site is many design sheets that the engineers, the contractors come up with to make sure it's not just willy-nilly, we just figure it out as we go. We actually design it into the project so we know when things are coming in, where they're going to go, how you bring traffic in and out of the site. Because on a tight site, it's just as critical for the contractor to coordinate that, because there's nothing worse than trucks showing up when they're not supposed to a contractor and he has no way to offload them. So all of that has to be coordinated. So you have contractors will have a team, the developer will have a team, the city will have a team, and working together every day, those things will be coordinated following a plan. And so there will be a plan, and we'll do just like we do in other projects. We'll publish that plan, we'll have it on the web, so if there's something coming in that may disrupt traffic for a day, we're going to publish it and say, hey, this is one day out of 365, we may be disrupting traffic, we're going to tell you about it. But the idea is to do it at night and do it off hours, so because we do have a tight site. You're right about that.
And my last question is that with this tight work schedule that we have, what are the work hours? Are they going to be allowed to work to what time to what time?
Right now, the city's ordinance is weekdays, 7 to 6. Weekdays is our city ordinance. If they want to work outside of that, they have to come and get permission to work outside of that. The contractors will come with a schedule. If there's times where they're doing a concrete pour and they need to work overnight, they'll come, they'll get permission, and then they'll be able to do it. But when they're doing it, they have to be good neighbors. They have to keep noise barriers up. They can't let the noise go off-site. There's all of those things that you have to do when you have to be a good neighbor, and all those will be built into the contract, or in these contracts, to make sure, in the design-build contracts, to make sure that they do their job right and we do our job right. And again, you know me, I never promise it's going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to be real close, and when we do make a mistake, there'll be a team there to correct it immediately, so it doesn't drag on for day after day.
Thank you.
And one thing I wanted to add too, we do have funding in the project from a public information standpoint, where we will be, what we have, I think, almost developed a website. There will be live cameras on the site, so people can go on the website, see what's going on. They're going to see real-time activity on the construction site, major security as well. Daily traffic alerts, if, say, we have to shut down First Ave or Second Avenue for a few hours for something coming in, all those things will be managed and provided to the public daily, literally daily. So we're going to do everything we can to develop a nice program. We're working on it right now to keep the public informed of what's going on, and if we know we're going to have a road closure in 2 days, we're going to blast it out. And I think we did a pretty good job with that with the Woolbright Road project, when, that was major intersection work, had to shut it down. We got the word out, so people knew to hopefully avoid the area if we can. So we'll have a pretty robust public information program throughout this whole duration.
Right, and if I don't do this, Eleanor's not going to be happy, but we have the information on the city's website, which is boyntonbeach.org, and then on Facebook. We'll have Facebook and Twitter feeds every day. So we're going to have a fairly robust public information system, not only to notify people what's going on, but also keep them excited about the project and watch the progress of the project.
Mayor, the next speaker, probably you can't see him, is over on the side here.
Colin, you mentioned that we have a tight site that we're working with, and how much consideration has been made into flexibility of the site, and if and how much research has been done, for example, to see if the hotel we're building is the right space or for the demand and everything? How much research has been done into that?
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they'll answer. They're here to move forward with the project. So I'm going to let, John, you want to answer your part? And
I'm not sure I understand your question.
How much research has been done on the hotel and its size to make sure that it is going to be...
That's Mark.
It's going to be answering the demands that this town square may put on it, for example, weddings and conferences, and how much consideration has been made into that size?
So the hotel is currently planned at 120 to 150 rooms, and part of that is limitation of heights. This is a proposed 5-story building. To go much higher, we'd have to come back to the city and ask for an ordinance change or bonus change to the current zoning. With the high school, we know that that will house up to 600 people on the second floor in the combined meeting spaces and 300 for a dinner reservation of any sort. So the study has been looked at from several different angles. Matter of fact, I'm meeting tomorrow with Discover Palm Beach folks to further those efforts, because we're trying to coordinate not only what else is being built in the marketplace. Right now, there's only one other hotel that we're aware of being planned in Boynton Beach. So the market demand's very heavy right now. And of course, we're in that season, but we believe that it'll easily handle the 150. It's going to be more about fitting it on that small parcel of land, because we're still working through even the parking. We have to have the same agreements for parking to be in that garage that the city would share with the residential component.
Before you go to the next speaker, I need to get some history on this Town Square project. Years ago, we talked about Town Square, and we got a thing up in the West Wing. When was the first Town Square project discussed here for this city?
I would have to research that, Commissioner. That predates me, and I've been here 10 years. Probably, I think that was when Quintus Green was with us, when he did the model, so that's been...
Quintus Green and Kurt Bresner.
And Kurt, yeah.
I need you to research.
Sure.
I need the date, and I'm just saying because from the time it was first implemented, it took that many years from to get it to this point. Thank you.
Yep.
Alan, then we have one over on the opposite side next.
Alan, yeah.
Alan Hendricks, 122 Southeast 4th Avenue. I'd say it's been about 15 years. Andrew?
Yeah.
I assume that our city building, our library is going to be a LEED certified?
We're not doing leads, we're doing green, what did I say? I just said it. Now
Green building code, something, I don't know.
Yeah, it's green globes. It's going to be green globe certified is what we're looking at doing. The reason is LEEDs has become you're in the business and you understand that LEEDs has become so expensive, you don't even get any value out of it anymore. They've kind of marketed their brand out of pricing. It's priced out of the market. But it's the same principle. So yes, it'll be certified for energy efficiency and all that. And I know we'll get questions about solar and all that. And we're going to build as much energy efficiency into these buildings as possible, using solar in the parks and solar charging stations, whatever we can do. So to answer your questions, it's designed to LEED's principles. We won't get the LEED certification because we don't want to pay the bill, because it's a very large bill for really just a piece of paper. But we are doing green globes. That's what it is. We're going to do a green globe certification.
Okay, awesome.
I knew I was thinking.
Picking up on something Commissioner Romulus said, I would love for our city, and maybe it starts with this project, to have a branded bus stop or whatever we do for pedestrians who get to stand out in the sun waiting for a bus or for Uber or some kind of, Weston does this and other cities do this where it's a branded, has a big B on it, a big BB on it, if you will. But throughout the city, and I think it's an easy thing. I'm going to continue to bring it up until somebody pays attention to it. And thirdly, on the comment about our inspectors, how does this process go? In addition to what we have on the city side, and then on the contractor side, you've also got your subs, your engineers, your landscape architects, and everybody that does inspections throughout the process to make sure that it all gets done. So there's a larger piece of the team than just the city and the contractors.
That is correct, yeah. Every engineer and architect will have inspections duties also, to make sure the plan meets the design.
Hello, my name is Flynn Holland, and I live at 618 South Seacrest Boulevard. And with all this heavy constructions that are going to come in on all of our roads, Federal, Boynton, and Seacrest, has there been any acknowledgement that the roads are going to have to be replaced, or they're going to be severely damaged by big trucks? As you saw on 500 Ocean, all of the roads around there were basically crunched and destroyed, and they've sort of come back. Is there anything that the city has talked about in the future of the roads that are going to be worked with this amount of population that's coming in here? Thank you.
Well, I know that the CRA, we're looking to redo Boynton Beach Boulevard from, I-95 to Federal Highway. We're currently in the process. The other roads, such as Seacrest and Federal, are also not owned by the city. Seacrest is owned by the county, and we are still working with them. And then with Federal, they're redoing it next year, so that it will be a brand new road. And hopefully that they know that there's going to be trucks on there, and they're building it for that.
Who are you talking to at the county about Seacrest? Because Seacrest is pretty bad in the first place, right?
That's Collins.
So getting construction on there is going to really destroy it.
So,
It's overdue.
right, that's a great question, and if we choose to move forward with this project tonight, next week, we'll start those conversations. We've had preliminary conversations with the county, as y'all are aware, with county commissioners. We are going to ask the county to move some of their road building funds that they are not spending right now into Boynton Beach and improve Seacrest. Seacrest needs to be improved from Boynton Beach Boulevard all the way actually to our city limits. We're going to push the county, we're going to need help from every resident to push the county to come in and spend those funds that the city has provided to the county for these roads to improve that road. I think we have great support. I've met with every commissioner, and we have very good support from the county commission. So we're going to push that, and we're going to be looking for some help to push that. So I think that will actually enhance this project tremendously if we can get those road improvements to happen.
Is there any from the audience? Yes, all the way in the back.
I'll wait.
Keep the order? Whatever order you think, so Mike.
Sorry. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Colin, thank you for your wonderful answer. I appreciate it. My question is, since I'm going to be running into construction debris on Sundays, apparently, like I did with 500 Ocean, who do I email on Sunday morning when I find construction debris out in the middle of Ocean Avenue? Because I assume that's not you, Colin?
No, we're 24/7, so you can email me, you can email Colin.
Okay.
We're always-
Well, who's going to get it picked up?
I will answer that question. On a project this size, there will be a hotline number that you will call that will be answered within 30 minutes, respond. You may have to leave a message if it's in the middle of the night. Somebody may not answer in the middle of the night, but get back. There will be on-call people 24/7 to deal with any issue that comes up, because there will be issues that come up. And the key is how you address those issues and how fast you do it. Because you're absolutely right, I can't guarantee everything's spotless. But what I can say is we're going to have a team in place that immediately when something happens, we're going to respond to it and clean it up. And I think if you look at city projects, we've done a pretty good job over that last 3 or 4 years of responding to those issues as they come up.
Jerry Taylor, 1086 Southwest 26th Avenue. I serve as a member of the Surtax Fund Committee, and the responsibility of that committee is to make sure that the surtax funds are spent as they were requested when we voted on it for infrastructure needs, basically. And the city has millions and millions of dollars in backlog on roads and sidewalks, maybe utilities, whatever. But my only concern is I just find out today that you're recommending $3 million of the surtax funds to be spent on the new cultural center. That's a new project, the way I see it. And so I think my committee, not my committee, our committee, will have to take a strong look at that to see whether we think that kind of money should be taken ahead of all the, we've been waiting years for some of these sidewalks and road repairs, and so we'll have to see whether we should recommend to the city to take $3 million of that and put ahead of all the other projects. Just a heads up.
expenditure. Yeah, we're very comfortable that the expenditure for this cultural center absolutely fits into the confines of what the surtax funds are available for. So we've spoken to our legal counsel as well. This is a rehabilitation of an existing building, so we're going to be okay as far as meeting surtax requirements.
Right, Laura, you're saying that, but I'm just saying, when we have a committee that's an oversight committee, wait, you talk, let me talk, please. Okay, we have an oversight committee. I know this is what you're saying, because this is what you all want. You all want this project to take off and fly, but I'm just saying, I'm like what former Mayor Taylor, that's why I said about the sidewalks and things. I don't want us to push things back, that we need to get done, and that was my concern. I don't care if you all have looked at it and say y'all feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable in a lot of things, and I'm just saying, I just want to leave it at that, and I'm through with it.
When we say cultural center, to be correct, or to be clear, we're talking about the old high school, correct?
That is correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. This is for the residential portion. How much of our affordable housing ordinance are we putting into play with our residential portion of this project?
John, there's a mic in front of you right there.
Great question, Commissioner. I know you and I have had conversations before. We're going to exceed the minimums, and we're anticipating that at least 20%.
Keep going.
Higher percentage or more information?
More information, please.
Well, you know that we have design units that are of a smaller type. I think the term micro unit is used too much and too loosely. They're not really that small, but what we're trying to do is hit a price point and a quality level that makes them affordable, rather than doing something that is a deed restriction or an artificial market control. So that's our strategy, and we believe that we can hit that 20% number in the
Perfect. Thank you for
project.
clarifying. What's the minimum rental amount that some of these units will be costing?
We're looking at the $1,000 range.
Okay, that would be for like a studio or a 1-1 or something?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, initially you said 750 a couple of months back. Was that number?
We can't hit that number.
Okay.
We've seen, a trend, obviously, in the news. We've seen steel going up. We're seeing a trend in construction costs now that we anticipate is going to continue, that it is upward.
Okay, so you were looking at a minimum of $1,000 per month for
That's
a
correct.
residential unit here in our downtown.
That's correct.
And is that precedented other places?
I'm sorry, could you say again?
Is that number something that we see commonly in other places downtown, in their downtowns, neighboring cities, neighboring counties?
No.
So that is something
We're
unique
setting
for
the
Boynton
setting
Beach.
the pace with that number, Commissioner.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
That's not happening.
Thank you, John.
And to your earlier question, I know that you had asked about research, and I think you were talking about the hotel. But I would tell you that, in our world, research is a science. We have done 3 separate studies on the private sector here. The latest one that we've updated in October, the end of October last year. It's about 90 pages. It's very complete. It goes into the demographics and needs of Palm Beach County. It narrows down on Boynton Beach in particular, and then on this site in particular. That's proprietary information. We typically don't share that, but we've made the decision that as a partner with the city, that we would go ahead and give that to the city. Your staff now has that. It's public record. So that information, that 90, 100 pages of detailed research is available for you. Your staff has that.
Yes.
You'll share-
If you would like to read it. It's
Thank you. You'll share that, please?
You can skip to the last 10
You won't
pages.
need your no-dos that night.
Yes.
Glass of wine will do. Thank you.
See no more further for public audience. We have, may I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? We will now call to order the CRA special meeting today, Tuesday, March 13, 2018, at 5:30 PM. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member, Board Chair Stephen Grant.
Here.
Board Vice Chair Jessica Katz. Here. Board Member McCray.
Here.
Board Member Romulus.
Present.
And Board Member Casella.
Here.
All present.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Seeing none, motion, agenda is approved. Michael, will you begin with the old business A?
Yes, good afternoon, CRA Board Chair, board members. Michael Simon, Executive Director of the CRA, joined by Tara Dewey, Legal Counsel for the CRA. The item before you this evening is a review of the Town Square project, your approval of that project, along with consideration of funding in the form of a ILA from fiscal year 18-19 through the end of our sunset in September 30 of 2044. There is an accompanying ILA currently under the fiscal year 16-17. We have an ILA with the city for $2.1 million, and under fiscal year 17-18, we have an amendment to the first ILA for $2.5 million for a total of $4.6 million that has been obligated to the Town Square project thus far. As was mentioned during the city's portion of the presentation, $3 million of that has been allocated toward the old high school, the progress that you see there, leaving a balance of $1.6 million, which in the slides was shown in your financing breakdown as the 17-18 funding that would be allocated toward the progress to finish the high school. Again, unless you have questions, the item really before you is to approve the project as was presented, and or amend that in any way you'd like to send information to the City Commission, and to approve the ILA with the city for funding that is eligible under state statute and the expenses that are described therein from now until our sunset period.
Any discussion from the board?
You going to do a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
Okay, the reason I want to be called for discussion is I'm going to go ahead and state we have $1.2 million set aside for the MLK Boulevard project. I'm going to speak for District 2 in regards where it deals with the northeast section. We are not really happy with the progress that we have seen over the years in the northeast section.
Michael's listening.
Michael's listening?
Yep.
Somebody else is talking. I'd like undivided attention. Because it's going to come back before the City Commission. We're not happy with the amount of work that we've seen in the northeast section of MLK Boulevard, but my vote was totally going to be against this entire project. But I'm not going to stand in the way. I'm going to trust your judgment. And I'm going to vote in favor of this project with the assumption that we will see more progress in District 2 when it comes to redevelopment. That's my comments from Michael, CRA Director.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm slightly confused. I feel like we did this already. Did we not allocate this $1.6 million already a couple of months ago?
Yes, you did. I was giving you a summary of what was remaining out of the 4.6 that you have previously obligated to the project. And I don't know the slide number that Colin showed the city commissioners and yourselves, but it is shown as the breakdown for your high school development cost.
No, I get that. I'm just slightly confused of why the redundancy.
Well, the term of this agreement starts in the next fiscal year through the 2044 fiscal year. So the ILA provides the assurance to the bond council and to the E2L development team that the financing is approved by both the CRA board and the city commission separately, so that they are part of the contract is that we have funding to finish Town Square and to complete the project. This ILA and this vote is one step in that assurance that the funding and the financing is in place. If that, hopefully. So you have an ILA for the previous funding, and then, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Board Member Romulus, the prior ILAs that were executed were for a single year. This is a multi-year ILA, so you won't have to keep doing.
That's all I needed to know.
No problem.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Interlocal agreement has passed unanimously. May I have a motion to recess the CRA meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? May I have a motion to resume the commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we will now begin continue the city commissioners meeting and now we are on to the TEFRA public hearing.
That's correct. And may I ask you to recognize Kate Stangler with Broad and Cassell, who will lead you through this portion of it. And she'll tell you the role of that law firm in making certain that the bonds are ready to be issued and sold. And I'll leave it to her to tell you that part.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Kate Stangl, and I'm with the firm of Broad and Cassell. Our offices are located in Orlando, Florida. We are serving as bond counsel for the proposed issuance of the bonds that will be used to fund a portion of the Town Square project. And as your staff has explained very well and very thoroughly, the bonds are going to be issued specifically for the City Hall and Library, the fire station, the police headquarters, various parks and open space enhancements, and the associated infrastructure. The proposal is to have these bonds issued on a tax-exempt basis. And in order for that to occur, Section 147C of the Internal Revenue Code requires that we obtain your approval in your capacity as a host jurisdiction. What this means essentially is that you make a determination that you feel it is appropriate for bonds to be issued on a tax-exempt basis for this project that's going to be constructed in your jurisdiction. And you have a number of items on your agenda this afternoon that touch upon the project and your participation in the project. But for purposes of the Internal Revenue Code and this particular item, it's really limited solely to your consideration and determination that this is a project that you're comfortable that tax-exempt bonds are being issued for it, and that you're comfortable with this project being built in your jurisdiction. In order for you to make that determination, the Internal Revenue Code requires that you conduct a public hearing. In that regard, this hearing has been advertised and in accordance with all of the Internal Revenue Code requirements and as further set forth in your agenda package. The way that I would propose you proceed, if it's acceptable to you, staff has provided you with a very good summary of this proposed bond transaction and this project. You would simply open up this hearing for public comment. And after you have received all of the comments and any questions have been answered, you would close the public hearing. You could then move on to the other items on your agenda. Later this afternoon, there is an item that is going to be presented to you for your consideration. It is a proposed authorizing resolution. And in the event that you determine that you want to approve that resolution, it includes a finding wherein you would be making the necessary determination that you are approving the issuance of these bonds for purposes of Section 147C of the Internal Revenue Code. This is just a bit of a procedural hurdle that the Internal Revenue Code requires of us for purposes of tax-exempt bonds. The only thing that I would like to add, in addition to the comments that you've already received, is that the city will not be the borrower in this bond transaction. As staff explained, the borrower is going to be the 501c3 entity, which is CFP Boynton Beach Town Square LLC. And just for the record, the sole member of CFP is Community Facility Partners. They are a Minnesota nonprofit corporation and a qualified tax-exempt charitable organization under Section 501c3 of the code. In addition, I want to also state for the record that this bond transaction will not constitute an indebtedness or a pledge of your general credit or taxing power. The bonds are going to be secured by your covenant, which will be included which is included in the proposed authorizing resolution, and will also be included in the proposed form of the facility leases, wherein you are agreeing to budget and appropriate on an annual basis available non-ad valorem revenues in an amount that are sufficient to make your rent payments under the facility lease form. So you are not pledging ad valorem taxes for this transaction. You are going to be making rent payments to CFP. CFP is going to be assigning those payments to the trustee for the bond transaction, and that's how this will work mechanically. So unless you have any further comments, it would be appropriate to open this up for the public to comment or ask any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, we'll now open it up to public comments. May I remind you to please state your name and address for the record.
Okay. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. Okay, I'm a little confused, and I'm actually halfway competent at this stuff. Please better explain who is CFP? Like, who are these people on this nonprofit? You know, like, I mean, nonprofits are very transparent, and this just, I don't understand. So could you explain more and how this is going to run, that it qualifies as a 501c3, as a charity for a building construction? Thank you.
This is Mark Heffron with E2L. I brought CFP to this project simply because they are a 501c3. They have a long track record in doing these types of projects. As such, the project will finish with the leasing, reverting all of the assets back to the city at the time of the bonds being paid off, which right now I believe we're set at 27 years. So this organization and E2L specifically are doing this for that tax exempt reason. There is not a profit built into that organization. But I hope that explained.
Well, yes,
the
first part, who's actually in charge of this?
Community Facility Partners, Dan Nelson, he's an equal partner with me. We spoke today, based in Minneapolis. He's been here to the city many times to coordinate this with us.
Cindy Falco, DiCarado, 316 Northwest 1st Avenue. My question is, I understand that this is going to be, I love it, it sounds very creative, by the way, but is it going to cost us, the taxpayers, any monies? Are we going to get taxed extra for this funding, or is it just going to go as, again, you're purchasing and it's then being paid rent back to, so it stays within that entity, or are we the people going to have to pay hefty at our tax time when we see the bill?
So I'll take that one. So the residents won't see any separate tax on your tax bill. There's no additional separate millage to pay this back. The funding mechanism to make the lease payment is the ILA that the CRA board just previously approved for the multi-year period, which it will come before the City Commission in just a few minutes for them to approve. That will provide part of the funding from the CRA for the lease payment or rent payment. The other part of that will come from the city's general fund. and we have it programmed out on, to include it in the next, starting next year, and then for future years. But there won't be a separate tax on your bill. Nope.
Is there any further questions from the audience? Now, do you need a motion?
Not at this time. If you, we can move on, and then when you consider the authorizing resolution, again, that includes a finding, if you deem it appropriate, wherein you are acknowledging that it is appropriate to issue the bonds on a tax-exempt basis pursuant to the Internal Revenue Code. So you will make your motion of that.
And I guess a quick question, in your professional opinion, we are within the tax code?
Yes. Yeah, and,
All right. That's all I need
let
to
me
hear.
speak on that just a bit further. Throughout this process, we'll be working on the actual bond documents. There'll be an offering document that goes out into the marketplace for the investors. And before the transaction can close, there will need to be an opinion of bond counsel, which will come from our firm, that addresses the tax-exempt status and acknowledges that the bonds can be issued on a tax-exempt basis. So we won't be able to close unless we can make that determination.
All right, thank you.
So, Mayor, if you just formally close the public hearing on that part of the agenda.
All right. Seeing no more public audience, the public hearing for the TEFRA is now closed.
And just as a point of reference for the commission, the authorizing resolution that Kate referred to is your item F on your agenda.
All right, thank you. So we're moving on to item C, proposed resolution R8.
Item C is the other half of the action that the CRA took. That's the signing of the interlocal agreement, resolution R18041.
Okay. Do you want to authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement with Boynton Beach CRA for the funding for certain portions of the Town Square project? We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Proposed resolution number R18-042, amend the adopted full year 2017-18 general fund budget from $89,752,645 to $93,253,628, an increase of $3,500,983. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board?
Yes, discussion.
Yes.
Explain to me why we have this $3.5 million increase.
Certainly. Tim Howard, the resolution that you have in front of you is similar to one that you passed last year when we entered into Phase 1 agreement for the Town Square. And if you remember, there was cost associated with Phase 1 that the developer would incur. And in the event that we didn't go to Phase 2, which we're looking at today, we appropriated an amount of approximately $2.6 million as a set-aside. So if we didn't go to Phase 2, we would pay that. We would have to pay that. So now we're at the point of going to Phase 2. The issue that we have is that from this point today to the time that we actually put the permanent financing or the bonds that Kate and I referred to earlier actually are issued and bought on the street is going to take anywhere from 90 to 120 days on a fast track. So our option was either do not do any more work on any of the design work for 90 to 120 days until that bond is issued, or determine a mechanism in which we could continue design work until those bonds were issued. So what you're going to have in front of you after this consideration is a Phase 2 agreement with E2L. Part of it is to manage the district energy plant and the high school. Another part of it is to continue the design work with the contractors on the other projects. In order to do that, they needed to increase their line of credit so those contractors can get paid. In order for them to increase their line of credit, their funding institution requires that we do a very similar budget amendment to say, if we do not issue the bonds If it falls apart, they're not issued, the city will pay those costs that are incurred from today to the point that the bonds aren't issued. Once the bonds are issued, the bonds cover all those costs, and this appropriation is not needed anymore. So it's appropriated of our fund balance to assure that if the bonds don't get issued, the contractors get paid for the work that they've done up to that point. If the bonds get issued, the bonds will cover those costs, and this will cease to exist. Does that explain that, Commissioner?
Yes, it went all the way around, but I got it.
Okay.
My question is where's the $3.5 million coming from?
It's coming out of our unreserved fund balance, and it will be released by the end of the fiscal year, because the plan is that the bonds will be issued by July or August.
Okay.
Or June or July.
So Tim, does that 3.5, once those bonds are issued, goes back into the reserve?
Correct.
And we are still above the 10%.
We still have our we have our 10% emergency reserve set aside, and we still had $5.3 million after the last appropriated, so the 3.5 will come out of the 5.3.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Proposed resolution number R18-043, authorize the mayor to sign the Town Square redevelopment Phase 2 service agreement with E2L Real Estate Solutions, LLC of Winter Park, Florida. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the board?
Yes, is this the one that we vote for the entire project, or is it F?
This is the part, if you look up at your chart where it says E2L just to the right of it, this covers the high school redevelopment and the district energy system and related activities.
That's those two there. F is going to cover all your other ones.
Excuse me, going to do what now?
F will cover your city hall, fire station, police, parks and open space. And
F, that's the one I'm looking for.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Proposed resolution number R18-044, authorize the mayor to sign a master development agreement with CFP Boynton Beach Town Square LLC for the development of certain improvements within the Town Square project and approval for the purposes of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code and general authorization to obtain permanent financing for the CFP improvements and providing for other related matters. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner McCraig?
Thank you. When I walked into this room this afternoon, I had already walked in with my mind made up not to vote for this project. Okay, the reason I still say it, I'm going to go back, Michael, what I reiterated to you about MLK and over in District 2, and I'm going to say to Collins, you said this is not your first project that you have done of this magnitude, and I'm in favor of the police department being moved where we promised the citizens years ago what will be placed out on High Ridge Road. I'm not in favor of tearing down this library because I worked my little butt off, to get where we are now. But I don't want us to go out saying about this commission that we are not unanimous on this project. So I'm going to go ahead and vote yay tonight. I'm just saying so that you all will say that, we all are on board with this project.
All right, and Commissioner McCrae, thank you for your comments, and that you will always be looking out for what's going on in District 2, and also for the rest of the commission for, minding what's going on in each of your own districts. Any further discussion from the board?
I think it's important that this commission, it's understood that this commission has to look out for the whole city, for the well-being of the whole city. We are commissioners from districts. We are just happen to live in that district. We get voted on this commission. But when the nuts and bolts of it is that we represent the whole city, not just the district. Thank you.
Comments?
Yes.
I don't want to go there, but I'm just saying when it came to the CRA board member, Commissioner Casello, was established for to get rid of slum and blight. That was years ago, probably before you came to Boynton. Probably you didn't read up on it, but my take is still, Michael, I still say, although I represent District 2, I represent and serve the entire city of Boynton well, sir, and I kind of take that as a slam dunk in my face. I do not vote just singly on one district. I vote for the betterment of the entire community, for the entire city of Boynton, but I still say that District 2 on MLK Boulevard, for the record, we feel like we have been neglected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I comment?
Yes,
And just
you may.
tie an item back. This ties back to the earlier comments by Kate in your agenda item B. And if you go to the top of page 4 of the resolution, which I'll read for anybody that doesn't have it, it contains this language: whereas to secure the amounts due from the city under the leases, the city shall covenant to budget and appropriate available non-ad valorem revenues as defined below to pay for the amounts due under the leases. And whereas the issuance of the CFP bonds requires a public hearing, which you have conducted, and approval of the city commission, which you will do with the adoption of this resolution, for the purposes of section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. So your motion will wrap up to item B.
Okay. And is that in the motion that we stated?
You just need a motion to adopt resolution R18044.
All right, thank you. We have that. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item G, motion to approve general terms of ground lease agreement and facilities lease agreement between the city and CFP, subject to approval by city attorney. Jim, you want to explain?
This one. Turn it over to DJ Judy, my law clerk.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Commission. This particular motion will allow us to continue to negotiate and finalize, which we're very close, the terms of the ground lease agreement and facilities lease agreement that will be entered into with the city and CFP for what we call the public improvements, the City Hall, the library, because the operational components of this transaction is such that the city will lease the land to CFP, which then will construct the project pursuant to the facilities lease agreement. And also, we then lease the completed project, City Hall, library, and the other components, the parks, back to the city.
So the good news is that the city will own the land. How any of the improvements, whether it be a building or the green space, we will be leasing that from CFP until we pay it off, and then we will own that building as well.
Yes, sir. And what we're asking you to do is to approve the general terms of both these agreements and allow us additional time to finalize them.
All right. Any further discussion from the board?
So at the end of the day, everything minus the properties that we are selling will revert back to the city?
At such time that the bond's paid off, yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Did we get a motion to approve?
Do we get a motion?
We didn't get a motion, no.
All right, so let's get that motion then. I'm sorry, yeah.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, now, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Moving on, proposed resolution number R18-045, authorize the mayor to sign the new markets tax credit consulting agreement with Atwater Infrastructure Partners, LLC, to provide consulting services in connection with the potential allocation of new market tax credits to fund the redevelopment of the old high school and related services.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the board?
Yes, I still want to hear what the board, that the people that's doing their oversight, I still want to make sure that I hear what they have to say, and other than that, I'm okay.
So regarding the new market tax credits, can you explain what that is?
Atwater's not here. Okay.
To my understanding, this is free money coming to us, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
That's all I think
Right.
Commissioner McCray is asking
That's all.
for.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
free money.
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
good.
what it
I
is.
don't have to-
Okay.
I'm good.
I'll sign a resolution to that.
Simple explanation.
And we had a motion.
And a
Yes.
second, we
All
just
right,
need to
thank
vote.
you. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Proposed resolution number R18-046, authorize the mayor to sign the following agreements with JKM Developers BlackRock or its successors and assigns for 1, the sale and purchase of real property owned by the city, and 2, a development agreement for multifamily rental housing with associated parking facilities, 3, a parking license to provide parking for city facilities, and 4, an option agreement, city acquisition of real property, all in furtherance of development of the city's town square project.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Any further comments before we adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Just a
Second.
reminder, you need to adjourn both meetings.
All right, so this is adjourning the city commissioners meeting.
Here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to continue the CRA meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, now may I have a motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to adjourn the CRA
So
meeting?
moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are we good now? Yes, Lori.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for, I'm shaking, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This, Mayor and Commission, seriously, I know you're relying heavily on your staff for good, strong guidance.
Excuse me, can everyone just wait until city manager's finished talking?
Hello, we're still in the meeting. Staff, we're still in the meeting.
And I do want to reassure you that we all feel very strongly that this is going to be a wonderful and successful project. We've worked, as you know, for over 2.5 years on this. Thousands and thousands of hours of staff time in our development team. Dragging DJ in several months ago, and we've monopolized and just about killed him over the last 3 months, I think, helping us get these documents in order. Thank you, DJ. Thank you, Jim. This has been a lot of hard work, and we just want to say thank you, and thank you to the public. I hope you feel good about it, as good as we do about the project. I think it's going to transform the city. We will continue to forge forward, and just thank you again.
Lori, I'd like to say thank you for your comments. Like to say to Collins, I don't agree with everything he said, but, he's kind of halfway all right, Tim. Thank you. But my whole take is that, I'm just saying you all have my blessings. I'm just saying I want them to, the newspaper, when they report that the entire commission here in the city of Boynton, that we are on board with Town Square Project.
Awesome.
Thank you.